Today I'd like to show you how to cover an old plastic garden pot with decorative paper. If you're interested, stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. What you'll need is an ordinary plastic pot, washed. This one was used, just cleaned. You will need some tape, scissors, something to mark with. It just has to be something you can see easily. Paintbrush, ordinary glue, it's called PVA here, just ordinary old glue, and a sealer, depending on what kind of sealer, how you want it to finish in the end. I'll put a link to my website where I use a different type of sealer for my bigger pots because it gives a glass-like finish, making it almost look like ceramics. But for my smaller pots, I just use this Estepol. It's a clear Estepol that you can wash up with water. I like the one that I can use water to clean it up because it's just easier to clean up. Okay, let's get started. Oh, and some newspaper. So just take some ordinary newspaper. First, we're going to make the pattern. Oh, silly me. And whatever paper you're going to use to cover the finished product. This is a wrapping paper. Some nice purple irises. That's what I'm going to use for this one. Okay, we'll get started. First, you're going to make your pattern. So just take some newspaper, wrap it around the pot, start it at the top just under the rim. You see this? Just take some tape to stick it in place. I'm just placing it under the rim of the pot and taping it into place. And this doesn't have to be neat, it can be, because this is just your pattern. Then wrap it around the pot. Now, because the pot is round and the paper is straight, it's going to not just fit perfectly around the rim, but that's okay. That's why we're making a pattern. So as it goes around the rim, you see this, I'm just using my fingers to smooth it into place around the rim. And as you can see, as it goes, can you see? Sheesh. It's getting past the rim, but that's okay. So just smooth it around the pot. And when you come to the end of the paper, just tape it down. And again, it doesn't have to be neat or perfect. We're going to adjust it once we cut it to shape. Just tape it down so you can hold it in place. Now, take your fingers and just run around the top, making the groove to where the rim finishes. Take your texture or chalk or whatever you feel like it and draw around that top so we can cut off the excess. Then, gee, this is weird trying to do this upside down. Then just cut off the excess. And even if you notice here, I've got a little bit missing. That doesn't matter either. We're going to fix that up in the end. Now, when you wrapped it around, it was a bit loose. Now just tighten it up so you get a nice snug fit. Now we're going to do the same for the bottom. Just give yourself like the indentation of where the bottom ends. Tape any bits that are not feeling secure. See this bit right here, working backwards, isn't secure. Okay, and then, oh well, sorry. I'm so used to doing this, I just cut freely. Trace around the bottom. And you can do this same method for any any size pots. As you see from the photos, I do big pots, small pots. You can do them with paper, fabric, lace, whatever you like. And if you like plants like I do, they really liven up your potted plant garden. Alright, so that's basically your pattern. And like I said before, there was a little bit of a I missed right here. So I'll just take a bit of spare paper. So hard working backwards. But I'll just do it and tape it on, and just tape it into place just to cover up that hole. Basically. So now my whole pot is covered with newspaper. Now all you want to do is draw yourself a straight line to cut it open. So doesn't have to be perfect. Sort of nice if it's straight. Can you see that? I just drew a line so I can cut it open. And cut along the line. If your pot is larger than this one, just tape several pieces of newspaper together until it's large enough to wrap around the pot. Now, I like to fold mine in half to just basically what they used to call it in pattern making. I'm an fashion designer. Is chewing up your pattern. When you fold it in half, you're doing so to make it even. I just found an uneven bit, so I'm going to wrap mine back into place and see why is that so. Okay. Now, what you need is an overlapping part, or if you were sewing, a seam allowance. So I just take my masking tape and along the edge I add a bit extra. Put it on both sides so you won't have it being sticky. And to the other side. Okay, now that's your pattern. Now, you take the paper and make sure that your pattern fits on the paper, which, as you see, mine does. Okay, now before, and luckily I can get 2 out of this. Ooh. So I'm going to cut this in half to not waste paper, and maybe I'll make 2 matching pots or a matching jar. I showed you before where I covered jars as well, or I can show you after. Now, this is a pretty thick paper, but sometimes I use just gift wrapping paper or fabric or anything I feel like using. These are mango chutney jars and an old plastic pot covered in gift wrapping paper. The next is a old terracotta pot and a second-hand thrift shop vase covered in fabric. And the last one is an old cracked terracotta pot covered with lace. As I was saying, to strengthen the paper that you'll be using to cover your item, especially if it's paper you printed yourself from your computer or gift wrapping paper, which both of those tear quite easily when moist and wrinkle very easily, ruining your project, you want to cover it with PVA glue, which is just plain craft glue, you know, the white stuff that dries clear. Just use an ordinary paintbrush and paint both sides. Be sure to just give it a light coat, making sure you cover it all, but if you paint too much, if you use too much, it'll dry milky and your picture won't show up as well. So you just want to give it a light coat on both sides. After you've completely sealed the right side of the paper, let that dry thoroughly, turn it over and seal the left side, the wrong side of the paper, and let that dry thoroughly. When it's done, it'll have a plastic type feeling, making it much stronger, less prone to wrinkle and tear. Okay, when we're finished with all of that, we'll come back and move on to part 2.